you can tell that we've known each other for a long time. We're friends. And we've been having a lot of conversations about this type of thing because I think what the pandemic did, on top of so many other things, is it shortened trend lines. It made everything that was coming in the future anyway sort of come a lot faster, whether that's how we buy furniture, how our clients buy furniture, how we think about our homes as a sanctuary. Like that word really started being used more than just by you once the pandemic hit. People
Agreed.
realized, like, oh my God, I need a place to get away from this insanity. And it was a refuge. So I think that's really kind of pushed the conversation a lot further and faster than it would have been. But this is something you and I talk about all the time.
I
That
know.
that designers are therapists in a way, and that now you have to be so much more concerned with your clients' well-being too, which is interesting. Wellness has almost become a cliche, but I think we agree well-being is another way of putting it. How do you think that the importance of health has changed, physical, emotional, mental, for people?
Well, it's funny. I think living through the pandemic really threw into sharp relief the way that we use our homes and the way that I feel like good health is the new currency. I mean, honestly, what do we really want? Staying healthy is really important. I mean, we all know people that struggled through the pandemic. A lot of us know people that actually passed during the pandemic. I mean, really, what a trauma, really, in a way. So I think the way we're valuing our health is different. And I was actually on a panel the other day with a medical doctor, and she thinks that designers are alternative health providers. And I thought that was so interesting. And she told me that some of the doctors that she is in practice with truly believe that interior designers have more impact on the day to day health of people than doctors and nurses in hospitals. And I just found that absolutely like revelatory. I mean, that's amazing. So good to know. And I think it really empowers us as designers to really take that, to own it.
I think that's so true. And I think it's not just the matter of choosing, let's say, the surfaces that are microbial, that antimicrobial surfaces, et cetera. It really is, how does your environment make you feel? Isn't it? It's more
Yeah.
holistic than just, your physical health, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In my design firm, this philosophy of sanctuary is really reduced down to a single line, which is that when we have peace in the environments that are around us, it truly does inspire peace and well being in the environment that is inside us. It's that as without, so within. And I think that reflection is such an important one. And I think it's even bigger than just physical health. I think we're talking about mental health. We're talking about emotional health. I think even our spiritual health can be affected by that.
And it's interesting because you and I were talking about another panel here at Market that was discussing trends.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that this particular person said is that she's sick of seeing blue rooms. And the thing that I find really interesting about that, though, is that psychologically, blue is such an important color. So, how do you feel about that?
I really feel that honestly, with where we are as a society right now and as human beings, trends really are not that interesting. It might just be me, but honestly, what I am after is a more evergreen look, a more evergreen experience. I want things that last. And I find that my clients are after that. We're trying to give them the kind of value that when they invest in these homes and redoing things and buying, new furnishings and artwork, and they want it to last. So I do as well. And following trends, not so much. But to me, the natural world and the colors that are in the natural world, is there any more healing power than that of Mother Nature? I mean, that is really the root of healing. And so when I look outside and I see a blue sky, I live in Naples, so I see a lot of blue water. I see green leaves. I see the neutrals that are the bark of trees and, other things that are around. To me, those never, ever date. This is not a trend. This is something that has always been. And for as long as there is life on earth, it will always be.
It's interesting because when I work with my clients, I tell them often, you and I've had this conversation too, is that, yes, I know you want to get published, but the most important person in the equation is your client and what they want and need, not what
Absolutely.
the magazine wants and needs.
Yeah.
So it's really critical to remember that as you're developing a home that this person's going to live in
Mhm.
and have memories made there. So That's critical. We've also talked about how balance and harmony are really important tenets of interior design. And you talk about sanctuary being the intersection between, the human, so to speak, and the built environment. Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
I really feel like there is this untapped power that our spaces have to affect our lives. I've seen it firsthand in my own family. I have a daughter with special needs, and I know that when she is in a peaceful environment with calm music and there's a little lavender floating through the air, she is the best version of herself. And I know that when she is in an environment that is loud and that is cacophonous and has a lot of stimulation, she freaks out, and it really is hard for her to be that best version of herself. And so when I see that in her so clearly, I know that it is affecting all of us in that way. Every single one of us are impacted by the things that are around us. And so I think, as designers and shop owners, I think for us to be the purveyors of goods and services that really help people get in touch with what is important, get in touch with who they really are, and calm down and let everybody get back to a place where we can take a deep breath and relax and really let our inner treasures out, because that only happens when we're calm.
That's a good way of putting it, letting your inner treasures out.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to
Yeah.
remember that one. I might use that again later.
Please do.
And when you describe sanctuary, does that mean I need a spa in my house or a sauna, or what does that mean when you're talking about sanctuary? I know it can be different for everybody, but what does that mean?
I think, who wouldn't want a spa in their
Yeah,
home?
hello.
Really. But many of us can't have that, and a lot of our clients don't want that or can't afford that. And I think a sanctuary is so much more than just a space that is focused on massages and or some sort of a therapeutic treatment. I think a sanctuary space is one where you can have time to do whatever it is that fills your vessel. And we all have those things. I mean, for some people, it might be making a big pot of soup. Maybe the sanctuary is in the kitchen. For other people, it might be taking a bath. And so your sanctuary becomes a space within your bathroom. For some people, it might be meditating or writing in a journal. And so maybe you have a little quiet corner at the side of your living room, or, in your master bedroom, in beautiful chairs where you sit and read. It really is meant to be a space where you can have time alone and you can really do the things that fill you back up. Because I think it's only when we have a full vessel that we can give to others, and that we can really take the light back out in the world. And to me, that's always the goal. Like we're just trying to give the goodness back, be that beacon of light.
It's interesting that you say that, because you also said to me once that it's taking the outward focus and turning it inward.
Absolutely. When you think about the barrage of information that we all have just in that little device that we tuck into our handbags and in our pockets, our phones are constantly buzzing, dinging, or maybe that's just Philip's. I'm not really sure. No one has more reminders set in their phone than my husband. Constantly. But, the amount of emails and, the news breaks and the Amber Alerts and it's always doing something. And so that is a constant stimulation. And I think it distracts us from thinking about what really matters, and it distracts us from really connecting with other people. So by having this special space of sanctuary, that goal is in that space, you turn inward and don't focus outward, at least for a little while, because that is where we get grounded again. And I think, again, back to the better versions of ourselves.
It's interesting, because then I think it kind of changes your client questionnaire a little bit too, doesn't it? Because
A lot.
then you have to start thinking about getting a little more to the heart of the matter with the client, rather than just what's your favorite color, right?
Absolutely.
It has to get a little deeper than that, because what my sanctuary is, and it's in her house, by the way, which is wrong somehow. But she has this wall of books, because I'm a bookaholic, and it has two big, squishy, fluffy chairs that face each other with oh my God, like it's, well, you better get out of it, because it's my favorite spot. But I think it's interesting, because you do need to know your client in a different way to build that sanctuary for them, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, we spend a lot of time interviewing our clients and trying to spend time with them because I don't think, you know, it is in what they say for sure, but it's also in what you intuit. I think as designers, we are incredibly intuitive people. We have to be because have to hear what they say and we have to hear what they leave out. And, you know, when I do that, we make sure that we ask questions like, tell me about a day in your life. Like, just start me at the beginning. Like, what time do you usually get up? You know, what do you drink in the morning? Where do you go? Where do you spend time? Do you love to write in the morning? Do you do Pilates? Do you meditate? You know, we ask all of these questions and kind of step people through so that we're sure we're creating the kind of landing pad that they need to plug that battery back in so that then, you know, they can kind of charge up and be at that higher frequency.
So then those types of questions and being in the consumers' homes has probably helped inform what you've done in this collection, right? So how
Yeah.
do they fit into a sanctuary idea?
You know, when we conceived of this particular collection for Chelsea House, Pam came to me and she said, you know, Lise, we want a collection that's based on a philosophy, not a look. And so I thought, oh, I've got that. You know, sanctuary is my favorite philosophy and my favorite thing to talk about. But I really wanted to create the foundational pieces that allow people to make sanctuary spaces. And this will be an ongoing effort for us. And, you know, when I conceived of many pieces that are here, it was during COVID. And so there were things I couldn't find. You know, I couldn't find the right writing desk that I wanted to be able to morph my guest room into an office, a Zoom theater, and a classroom. You know, I couldn't find that. I was having a hard time finding the right little pull up book cases to hold my art supplies and my books and the things that I wanted to have near me. I needed little pull up tables and good lighting. You know, I was looking for those items and it was really difficult to find. So that is what I designed for this first round of Sanctuary Collection pieces. And we actually also did it through the lens of 5 different motifs because I think that symbols matter. You know, symbols are such an ancient language. And so we looked at sacred geometry. I don't know how many of you are familiar with what sacred geometry is, but if you've ever looked at a nautilus shell, you know that Fibonacci spiral, that's sacred geometry. If you love succulents and you know all those beautiful little green leaves going all the way around, that is sacred geometry. So many of our pieces, you will notice when you look at our collection, the flower of life, the tree of life, you know, things like that. I think those symbols woven into the design help those things have a really good, powerful energy. And then the rest of them are all based on things in the natural world, you know, earth's elements, gifts from the sea, celestial objects, that kind of thing.
It's interesting because psychologically,
Yes.
I don't think a client would probably describe to you that Fibonacci makes them feel peaceful, but it does,
It
doesn't it?
does. You know, many of the most famous architects in the world that have designed the cathedrals that have stood the test of time, that's all sacred geometry. The layout of those across is sacred geometry. So it's not surprising, you know, these things work on us on a subconscious level. I really think that they do. You know, I've been getting a master's degree in philosophy and religion. And one of the things that I have been studying in there is depth psychology and Carl Jung. And, you know, he truly believes that symbols are the language that all human beings speak together. And it's the same language for everyone. And I really love that. It's powerful.
It's interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Mm.
But we do live in a modern world. Okay.
Mhm.
So you and I have also talked about technological aspects to this because we're bombarded
Absolutely.
all day long.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there are pros and cons, right?
Mhm.
Because another thing Lisa has in her house is interconnected speakers, which I love, love, love,
Mhm.
love, because the music is wherever you are in the house, right? And so that to me is calming as well. So,
Yeah.
what are the pros and cons of technology in this idea of sanctuary?
You know, I think in the world we're in today, we can't really avoid technology. It just is part of our life. It's how we connect with other people in certain ways, even though I just talked about connecting without our phones. I think there are different types of connection. But, you know, just to your example of having interconnected speakers, we have a Sonos system at our house and at our studio, and I love music. You know, I love to have it in the background. My husband, Philip, is a composer, super talented, who writes this really the soundtrack of Sanctuary sanctuary. And so having that kind of music in the background, to me, it's part of the environment. And nothing can lift the mood more quickly than music, and nothing can diffuse a tense environment and make people calm down and take a deep breath faster than music. So I do think we can use choice bits of technology in ways that can really help us, honestly.
What about scents in the home?
Yeah, for sure.
Same thing?
Yeah, it's really funny. Scents in the home are a little controversial because not everybody likes to have strong scents. A lot of people are super sensitive. And I think our world, unfortunately, is a little on the toxic side at times. And all you have to do is walk down the hall at the Atlanta gift market in the candle aisle and seriously, like, walk fast and don't breathe in.
Mine is about going to Fresh Market right now. Has anybody been at Fresh Market? Because
cinnamon.
You walk inside and I'm allergic to that cinnamon, and there are cinnamon pine cones and brooms everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
and I run in.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, honestly, certain essential oils can be great, but I think that things that remove smells from our homes are almost more important than adding them, and trying to mask things. But one of my very favorite scents is just melting candle wax, just the very simple, unscented candles. I love them, and I have them all throughout my house. My candle bill is probably as big as my coffee bill.
Well,
That's okay.
You bought more while you were here,
I
too.
did. I don't want to talk about
Don't want to point out your problems, but that is a big one for you.
My name is Lisa, and I do have a problem with candles.
She does. But it's okay. There's
Thank
worse
you.
things, right?
Yes.
But I mean, okay, back to scents a little bit. Are there scents that do work for most people, like a lavender or bringing in fresh flowers? How does that work for you?
When we were just talking, just to segue for 1 second back to what we were just talking about, houseplants are one of the very best ways to clean our air. And so that is another way without equipment to be able to kind of clean out some of those things. But I do think that certain essential oils can be incredibly powerful. I love lavender, but I will tell you, I've had people on my team that hate lavender. So it is very personal.
Yep.
And I think that is why there are so many options out there and so many things. I think it works for some people, and I think it doesn't for others, honestly.
And
But
again, that's asking questions.
Yeah, it is.
And getting to the heart of what that person likes.
Yeah.
How do you meld two people's opinions on something about what sanctuary is? I mean, do you try to find a sanctuary for each person in the family within the home? How does that work?
I do. I look at the entire home is certainly a macro sanctuary, right? And then we try to create spaces within that macro that are micro sanctuaries, and everybody kind of gets their own place. Whether it's a child gets their room and you kind of create their sanctuary in there. Phillips is in his music studio. Mine is out at the end of our great room. Like, it just, we kind of make them where we can. But I think everybody needs their own spot to be, because everybody wants to come together, but everybody needs to be able to be alone.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I'm a major introvert, so anywhere that I can decompress is a very, very good idea. You also have said many times what your sanctuary is, but you haven't exactly described it. So can you describe for everybody what your personal sanctuary, I've been lucky enough to see it, but will you describe what it is?
At my home, I actually have two. So my main one that I had when my kids were still young and living at home is actually out in a main space, because I'm the mom. I have to stay in control of what's the flow through the house, who's eating what, who's coming in, who's running out, all of those sorts of things. And so mine is actually out in my great room. And what I did is I laid down a big rug and I put a big work table on there, because I love to paint and I love to do projects, and I just always have something going on. And I like to have things around me. I am the original maximalist. When you come to my house, there's barely a surface that doesn't have something on it. I know a lot of people need a really clean environment for sanctuary. I like to have things around me. I find things comforting. Also, within my sanctuary space, I have a big dog bed, because Philip and I have two Springer Spaniels. And to me, just snuggling with the dogs, it can be a sanctuary moment. I have the wall of books that you mentioned with the big 2 chairs in it. And sometimes I'm in those alone, and sometimes I invite other people into my sanctuary, like my friend Cheminne. Sometimes Philip and I sit there in the morning and have a cup of coffee before the day starts. But what's interesting is that by having it out in the main area, people see you and they think they have access to you. You want to hear what they're saying and you want to talk to them. And that isn't true. So I had to work with educating my family a little bit and saying, look, if I'm working in here and I don't lift my head to look at you when you approach me, I can't talk to you right then. Like I'm in the middle of a thought, I'm in the middle of a project, I'm creating something. I'll be with you, but just hold on. And so the chairs that are in there, those big easy chairs, my kids would come in and sit, and then what do? They turn on a video out loud on their phones. And so I created a little bowl of headphones there, and I said, all right, listen, this is my sanctuary. If you want to come in here with me, I'd love it, but please use headphones. So, I think we have to do things that work for our family dynamic. I also made a second space for myself that's for my academic pursuits, because honestly, academic writing is so circuitous. I have to read it out loud sometimes to be able to follow it. So I made a second space with a desk that's quiet, where I can go back and have a door that closes, because that can also be an important part.
I like that, actually.
Yeah.
The closed door is very important to me.
I know.
Again, being the introvert, sorry.
Yeah.
What about the shapes that are important? I know you talked about Fibonacci, but are there other shapes? Like, for example, we do sometimes talk about the sharp corners versus curves, and what kind of shapes resonate with people and their emotions?
I think that curving shapes are calming. There's no doubt about that. I think they've done studies on that to figure that out. I don't think, honestly, as much about shapes in the spaces as I do just the flow of things. Kind of, can you get through? It's stressful being in an environment that you can't have an easy way to get through, even if it's night and you can't see very well. So I think the flow of it is a little bit more. And I love that you brought up harmony and balance, because that's also a really big part of it. I'm a lover of symmetry because I truly believe and have seen that symmetry is peaceful and it makes people feel good. And yeah.
So we also have talked a little bit about emotional well-being. We've talked about mental well-being, but when it comes to the physical, what are some of the products that you use that are more attributable to that physical well-being in the home, like a wave over toilet or something like that, where you're not touching surfaces?
I think what I'm always thinking is that our experience of the spaces around us is through our senses, right? So I always just start with that. Like, what are we seeing? Because beauty does matter. It's not everything, but it does matter. I think about, again, what we're seeing, what we're smelling. You brought that up. I think about what we're hearing. We talked a little bit about music, but I think about what we're touching. And I think, having surfaces underneath us that feel good, under our feet, soft rugs, under our, on our chairs, we want soft fabrics. Kravit introduced a line of wellness fabrics last year that I really love that they call Celliant. That's the name of the fiber that's in it, and it is meant to react with the heat of our bodies, like the copper mats with the infrared lighting. It's meant to be a wellness treatment at many spas. This works in that way. And I actually have on my Celliant socks today. They gave me a pair when I went up for the launch, which is kind of cool. I just thought this will kind of keep me grounded with what I'm doing. I'm trying to think of what other products we use in the homes. It is so incredibly personal. What we do is such not a one size fits all thing, that really by digging into what our clients value, we really go there.
And we've also talked about educating the client about off-gassing and things like that, and how that impacts their physical well-being. We just had a conversation about that recently.
We did.
So is that becoming more and more important too, as what materials are made from?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think also just even sourcing things responsibly. I know we've heard so much about green design, like that kind of came and then it flowed out, as another trend. But I think at the end of the day, as designers, we have such an impact on the world around us. And if we recognize the healing power and the aliveness of the natural world, we actually want to protect it. And it changes then a little bit who we want to do business with, because we want to do business with people that are being responsible, with the environment, that are, kind to it, and, not creating products that are poisoning it further. And, how are we throwing away of all of our trash at installs and those sorts of things? It all matters.
very much.
Mhm.
Thank you. And look for the book.
But
And
in the meantime, we do write a blog every couple of weeks or so. So if any of you are interested in following, the movement that we're so glad to be a part of and just so honored to be in service to, our blog is at Finding Sanctuary by Lisa Kahn Designs. So yes, thank you all so much for coming.
thank you,
I appreciate
everybody.
it.